Ochelli Effect is sponsored by WallStreetWindow.com and listeners like you.
And now, the most underrated voice in all media, Chuck Ochelli.
Looks like it's April 23, 2024, allegedly. According to that thing we call a calendar, the Ochelli Effect, you listening to us, probably via podcast and all that, but we are live at Ochelli.com and on Ochelli.com radio right now on a Tears Day Tuesday. So there it is, there it was, and what it's going to be. Did I want to cover the news today? I thought about doing it, and then I didn't want to do it. I'll have to do it tomorrow or the next day, and maybe we'll have to get into, some of the serious news, the current situation in the Middle East, of course, and everything else. I mean, talking about Congress, what it is they're willing to fund, what it is they're not willing to fund, what's happening with the presidential selection. Yeah, I'll probably have to touch on all that and find something more interesting to talk about tomorrow night. But tonight, I have Regular Joe with me. And, last year, and it might have been 2 years in a row, I'm not sure now, might have been a couple of times. I think it's been a couple of times. I know I've had this conversation with him before, and I think we did this live last year on the show, or maybe it was the year before, but it doesn't matter. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, okay. They got some inductees once again. And every year they do this. They have a class of whatever year it is, and they put people in, and does it really matter who actually votes them in? There's one fan vote that goes on. I didn't even check out who the fan vote choice is this year, etc. But I know it's happening. And this year, for me, it's a good one. In my mind, I like who's being picked. I like who's being offered up, if you will. But let's get a take from Regular Joe, and we'll hear from you guys about this too. I mean, we always wind up talking about music on Fridays. Let's talk about the Hall of Fame, what it means, what it is, and who's going in. Regular Joe. See, I'm not doing news. You're here. What's up?
All right. That's great, because I just really don't look anymore. But I am looking at the list of the nominees for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and right off the top of my head, I'll have to say that some of these folks I'm surprised weren't already there.
Well, for me, Ozzy Osbourne finally going in. I don't know when they considered him eligible as a solo artist, but that's my guy. And, he got in there with Black Sabbath, of course, earlier, but that's the thing. You go in with a band, you may not be in there with your solo act, right? It doesn't matter how big your solo act is compared to the band, etc. At one point, I don't know if it's true anymore, but at one point, Ozzy's solo career definitely outshined his career with Sabbath, record sales wise and stuff. Now, I don't know if that's still the case, quite honestly, because Sabbath reunited and toured seemingly forever until they officially retired a couple of years ago. But obviously Sabbath deserves to be in there, and so does Ozzy Osbourne. But there is another weird mix in there, and of course there are people that are going to get all upset and bent out of shape, etc., about who got in and who didn't, on and on. And the weirdest one, the only one that grates against me so far that I saw, is Cher. Because
I have to agree with you on that. That's pop.
Is that pop? Is that what is Cher anyway? Really, what is Cher? I mean, I know, look, there's plenty of R&B stuff. There's plenty of hip hop. Some people are still pissed that rap goes in there. But Cher? I don't know. Cher is weirder to me than Mary J. Blige, who was also going in this year, right?
Yeah, that is actually stranger. And now there's another one that kind of runs against the grain for me, and that's the Dave Matthews Band. No.
See, okay.
Never did a thing that I liked.
Now, what do you call the Dave is the Dave Matthews Band rock and roll? Is it, is it something that should be, and there you go. See, again, I'm forgiving with when people were mad about Public Enemy going in, and I'm like, yeah, but that's Public Enemy. I mean, that's, of course, it belongs in there because, in a way, hip-hop is an outcropping, a creation that wouldn't have been possible without rock and roll, and it still used the rock models for a lot of stuff indeed, I mean, the industry changed and so on and so forth sound-wise, but truthfully, it had just about the same journey that rock and roll did, where, and people complained about the same kind of stuff. It's repetitive, it's derivative, it's not very, there's not much talent to it, basic lyrics. Although, you know what? The funny thing is, and I was talking to somebody I'm not going to name right now about this recently, when it comes to lyrics and looking back at, the good, wholesome, clean music of the past, even before rock and roll was born, there's some pretty twisted stuff out there that's right in plain sight. I mean, I mentioned it to him. I said, you got guys wanting to sleep with very young girls in very calm, tame, mainstream Mel Torme sounding music, right?
Yeah, with poodle skirts and, pompadours.
Yeah, stuff like that. And, I mean, the guys who were like the Frank Sinatra before he was the older guy, doing it my way, they were doing that. But also there's like the Eddie Arnolds of the world. I mean, look, and there's tons and tons of music out there that is filled with innuendo that's all about, sex and this and that. But let's not go with the American prudish thing. I find lyrics that suggest to me cannibalism, that suggest to me dark things, maybe, and it's not just, of course, blues artists and selling their souls to the devil. And yet, no, it's way beyond that. Like all throughout what they call popular music, if you pay attention for a minute or think about some of what they're saying, pretty severe. I mean, there's some murder, there's some mayhem, there's weird sexualization going on, all kinds of strange stuff. I mean, there's guys killing people in songs, and it all sounds cheerful and nice because it's got an orchestra behind it and whatnot. But I mean, the controversy that was rock and roll and all that kind of stuff, and it's the devil's music, and it seems like anything that goes through that is almost eligible. Now, that almost works against my argument with Cher and all this, where it's like, what is that? And what is the Dave Matthews Band? I still ask. What
would you call it? Folk or jazz or somewhere in between, I think. I mean,
well, it's not
rock.
Yeah, it's not honest to goodness folk music, but then again, some folk music would fit in the rock category, right?
Yes,
Now, what is Dave Matthews? And how do you? And here's the other question: how do you even define rock and roll? Right?
The backbeat, I think, is the backbone of the whole genre.
Okay, so what you're saying is it's about that simple, basic, danceable kind of beat, the shuffle.
And of course, it's multi-layered, but I mean, if you're breaking it down to a body, the spine, the whole communication is that backbeat in rock and roll. And then, of course, you've got your dirty, dirty guitar, which that's what speaks to me more than anything in rock and roll is the dirty, dirty, crunchy guitar.
Okay, but there's a lot of country music that's got a crunchy guitar and the same kind of backbeats, right?
Yeah, sort of. But, once you add the twang, it's, and country has kind of taken the face of many other genres just to stay alive over the years. I mean, it was cowboy music, and then it was jug band music, or even what's the one they call out of Louisiana? The Zydeco.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So, I mean, country has taken on many faces. In the 80s, they started sounding like your soft rock bands with your Alabamas and your Oak Ridge Boys, and
well, and then Shania Twain came along, and it was indiscernible from pop in my mind with her.
Exactly. Yeah. Indiscernible at that point. And then, during that same era, though, strangely enough, you had these guys like Alan Jackson that were trying to take country music back to its roots.
Right. I mean, look, there's some people that tried to go back to it, but there you go again, right? It's still, how do you really say there's a big, huge difference, though, between that and rock and roll in a lot of ways? See, again, and I'm using a term that I don't think, do kids even use that term today? Does anybody even say rock? I mean, outside of the probably one FM station that you guys have in your market somewhere, if you ever turn on a radio, and I do mean I'm talking to the listeners now, there's probably like one rock station near you, right?
Yeah.
Outside of that, who uses that term anymore? Rock and roll, it rocks. It's rock time, rock and music. I mean, Yeah.
The only time I hear it used anymore is preceded by the word classic. And there's a good reason for that. It's because it died. So, if you want to go back and listen to what it is, you've got to go back a couple decades now,
Well, yeah, and it's made up of many, many subgenres, as I said. But, again, I see people that make the argument that hip-hop doesn't belong in there, and I think it does because, again, it is a natural progression from rock and roll. But also, I think modern country.
All of them are progressing from the blues if we're getting right down to brass tacks,
Well, there you go. But then again, a lot of things that you could count as rock music don't necessarily have that same old gritty blues backing to it either. Because, again, all right, well, let's take a look at the artist. Forget about, Ozzy. I could go, 100 different ways, and I know too much about the guy. But, okay, Foreigner, right? Foreigner.
See, that's one of them I thought were probably already there because, they sold out arenas in the early and mid 80s.
Well, that's weird. And plus, is it Peter Frampton in this class or is that?
Yeah, Peter Frampton's in this class too. And that's one of the others. One of the, we've now named the three that I thought were already there. I thought Ozzy was already in as a solo artist. I thought Frampton was already there. And I thought Foreigner was already there. So I was surprised that they weren't.
What we should look at is see if Hot Tuna, because it wasn't Peter Frampton a member of Hot Tuna?
I don't remember. I do remember seeing this documentary one time on Peter Frampton and how he'd have been much more considered as a guitar god or a guitar hero had he not been marketed as a teeny bopper.
Right. But I remember the Hot Tuna acoustic reunion one time, and the big question was whether Peter Frampton was going to show up. So I'm not sure if he was like an original member. Let's see, in HOF. Let me see. Hot Tuna and the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Hot Tuna needs to be inducted. Okay, I guess they're not yet.
Wow.
Hot Tuna was...
I don't know Hot Tuna.
Well, let's see. Lifelong friends and founding members of Jefferson Airplane, Jack Cassidy, and... I can't pronounce that name. Jorma... Cocaine formed Hot Tuna in 1969. The band released more than 24. Wow. Okay. Let's see. Let's get Hot Tuna into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Apparently, there's online. Well, there's online causes for everything anymore, right? There's petitions for every single thing. Bring back my favorite G.I. Joe toy. Is out there, right? Let's see.
If I signed petitions, I would consider that one.
Right. Okay. And let's see. 69 released more than 24 albums and played thousands of concerts around the world. Don't miss their Nashville stop. Apparently, they're going to be on in Nashville. Oh, no. Wait a minute. They were already in Nashville a year ago.
Oh, wow.
Takes the stage on April 12th, 2023. So, yeah. Oops. They already were there in Nashville, I guess. Okay.
No, I was just talking about this Rock Hall of Fame thing with a guy that I ran into. We'll call him Batman for the sake of brevity.
Nice, Batman. Okay.
Yeah, Batman. And he was talking about his favorite induction ceremony performance.
Mm-hmm.
And he said he couldn't remember what year it was, but U2 was performing "Give Me Shelter," and Mick Jagger came out on stage and performed it with him.
Yeah, that is a big move from Mick Jagger. Loves to be the guy who shows up surprise, right? Hey, look, let's do this. What did he do? He did that Live Aid thing. That was funny. But he wasn't the one who flew from one side of the one side of the Atlantic to the other. That was Phil Collins did that. But I do remember that it was like Mick Jagger. They had a premiere video of him and which is really a crazy. You want to talk about crazy, weird stuff? Him and David Bowie doing Dancing in the Street together.
Oh, that was terrible. The Family Guy did a whole cutaway of that, and Peter Griffin's commentary was, "That happened, America, and you let that happen."
Yeah. But a weird thing, but Mick Jagger then shows up to do this over weird, like bombastic, sexualized thing with Tina Turner, right?
Yeah.
At Live Aid. It's anyway, I don't even know why I went there. Oh, because you mentioned Mick Jagger, that's why. Anyways,
That's the thing. That's the thing about the Stones for me. I love to sit down and listen to some old Stones. Early '70s, late '60s old Stones. Old, not the old, but old Stones, like the song "Bitch." I mean, that's just gold to me. But if I have to watch Jagger perform it, can't do it. Can't do it at all.
I know people love the Stones, but like they're never friends of mine. You know what I mean? Like, and I don't get wanting to watch him perform. I never got it, even when he was like a young dude, and they were like, oh look, the Rolling Stones, they're very unique. I'm like, I don't know, there's something. I mean, I like some of the music if you can take away the visuals.
Yes, that's me. I cannot visually do it.
Right.
Even as cool as Keith is, because I think Keith's really cool the way that he plays and presents himself on stage. He's just like the cool classic guitar guy.
Right.
But even that, Jagger just takes the eye, and you're like, what is he doing? Stop doing that.
Right. And it's very straight. Like one thing you got to give him is its original moves. I mean, it's like somewhere between, I don't know, like a cheerleader and a stripper chick deciding to run around and be like mixed with Jim Morrison, and boom, there is Mick Jagger pretty much, right? With this weird like stuff. He puts his hands on his hips for some reason.
Yeah. It's
like and here's the other thing. I know this isn't politically correct or anything, but it's kind of gay but kind of not gay at the same time, which is
you just can't tell what he's trying to convey. It's like, what are you trying to tell me, Mick?
Yeah, exactly. Like, you're not sure what he's doing, but when you hear that he had, different proclivities and maybe was sleeping with David Bowie at one point, you're like, I'm not surprised at all.
No.
So, but you're not surprised, but you're also still unsure as to what direction he's going in. Even though he had the famous model, the famous model wives, right? Jerry Hall was one of them. Didn't he get another younger one, or was that?
Oh, I can't remember these degenerate rock stars that we idolize and their sexual proclivities, and it's hard to keep up with all of that. What I can keep up with though is that Roger Daltrey's been married to the same woman since like 1970.
Yeah, that's wild. Along with that sort of wild thing on a personal end is Keith Richards is still alive.
Yeah, I know. I don't think he has any of his own blood. I mean, that was one of the crazy rumors that went around in the rock and roll world anyway.
True enough. So anyway, I'm looking at Frampton, and I'm trying to figure out. Now, I know he had, I don't want to look at, one of the first searches that comes up, by the way, is Peter Frampton's wife, and I don't even want to look at it. But let's see, what bands was he in? Because I was thinking Hot Tuna, and now I see it's a duo, so it can't be. Maybe he performed with Hot Tuna for a little bit, and I got that stuck in my head somewhere. Because I remember that somewhere in the 90s, that like there was this speculation whether Peter Frampton might show up at a Hot Tuna show for some reason. Maybe he guested on a song somewhere. Who knows? Let's see, was he in? Now, Peter Frampton, though, let's be honest. And I've seen this mentioned somewhere, and I don't remember what movie it was first mentioned in, but pretty much like when you were a kid in the suburbs, they issued you, if you were in any kind of suburb, they issued you a copy of Frampton Comes Alive. That thing was like in everybody's house when I was a kid. That record, 2-record set, existed in everyone's home. It seemed like anybody who had a record collection that, exceeded 10 records, you had a copy of Frampton Comes Alive. And I know that was a big selling record, and it seems to me as though his career wasn't even big until the live record came out. What's your recollection of that?
Well, I'm a bit younger than you, so Frampton was already bordering on classic before I was into the genre. So I really don't have a big recollection of him up and coming. Just he was already a staple with "Do You Feel Like I Do" and "Baby I Love Your Way," and what's the other one with the
"Show
the guitar?
Me the Way Every Day I Want You"? That one.
Yeah, that always reminds me of Death from Family Guy saying, "And bring that thing that makes your guitar go wah 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 wah."
Oh yeah, exactly. I think that's when Adam Carolla took over the voice of Death, unfortunately, because they couldn't get what's his name to come back again. But anyway, yeah, that was great. Oh yeah, Peter Frampton, come with me, or I'm gonna take you to death. And he goes, okay, I'll do it. Bring your guitar and that thing that makes it go wah 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 wah. Yep.
Yeah, now I can't even hear that. That's why I couldn't remember the title of the song, because every time I think of that part of the song, that's what I think of is Family Guy. So.
See, it's not just me, folks. You know, everybody goes, yeah, every time Chuck brings up these cartoons for references to things. But you know what? There's a reason. They do these little cutaway bits, and it sticks with you. So, you know.
Yeah,
anyway.
Pop culture reference in a humorous way always sticks with me.
Well, let's see. We could go to his entry on the rockhall.com. I think I'm going to go there, rockhall.com, and take a look at his entry there. Because let's see, how do they have him described? Passionate songwriter, guitarist, and cultural touchstone. Peter Frampton is one of the few musicians who can evoke an image of rock and roll stardom with 3 simple words. Frampton comes alive. Yeah, that was the big thing. Anyways, go ahead. I'm going to skim through this, see if I can figure out what else he was doing, because let's see, he continues to write and perform, collaborated with rock and roll's elite, including George Harrison. See, he collaborated with a lot of people. Henry Nilsson, let's see, John Entwistle, of course, from The Who, Donovan, Jerry Lee Lewis at one point, Ringo Starr, David Bowie, and even Dolly Parton.
Oh, that's cool. Who doesn't love Dolly? I mean, I'm anti-country music. I just am. There is some of it that I'll listen to and enjoy, but I never just sit down and turn it on. But you got to love Dolly anyway.
And what's funny is, I mean, I bet you that most people don't recognize that he's got, you know, everybody knows about Frampton Comes Alive, but how many other Frampton albums do people even know about?
That's the only one I'm aware of. And of course, you know what I'd like to do with these artists is just, you know, pick a song. You know, what's your pick of their catalog, Chuck, per se? You know, what's your Peter Frampton pick, since we're talking about him right now?
Well, you know, he did a thing on that live album, and it was I don't remember if the whole chorus was the name of the song or not, but it was a slow, you know, grinding little acoustic thing. And that was the other funny thing about that Frampton Comes Alive album, is that a lot of it was acoustic. Some of it had those weird guitar effects, and he used the wah pedal, obviously, like you were just describing in the Family Guy cutaway. But to me, it was what was it, like all I Want to Be Is By Your Side, or whatever was the name of that song. And that to me was the coolest song. Like, you could easily dedicate that to you know, to the girl you liked, you know what I mean? And it was pretty cool. It had some weird lyrics to it. You know, there's money in my pocket. You know, I won't make a sound. Weird stuff going on in that song, and you had open-ended visuals to it. And the acoustic version of it, I don't know if there was an electric version of it. Anyway, it was one of those songs on that album. But I'm looking at the selected discography on his Hall page, right? And From the Underworld, okay, with the Herd, it says in parentheses, 1967. I Don't Need No Doctor. Performance in Rockin' the Fillmore with Humble Pie. Humble Pie, that's the name of the band. I'm thinking Hot Tuna. It's Humble Pie that he was with.
I like Humble Pie. Was he a member of Humble Pie, or he just collaborated?
All right, let me see. I think he might have been a member, but let's look at that, because there it is. I was looking for what band he was with, and I'm saying Hot Tuna. I got it wrong. I don't know why I was doing that. Okay, English band formed by, let's go to this. Okay, English band formed by, let's see, where's the members for this year? 1968 background and formation, 69 to 70 official formation. Where's just a list of the members? Let me get away from Wikipedia, because they got too much crap on there. Humble Pie official website. Let's go there. Okay, and go to their bio, because Humble Pie's got a nice-looking modern website.
Okay. Oh, cool.
So,
I've not been there.
Let's see. When Humble Pie emerged a half-century ago, they led the way, blah, 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 blah. Classic LPs like 1971's heralded live album performance. Yeah, here we go. Rockin' the Fillmore, 1972's commercial breakthrough. So there you go. Let's see.
All right. I've got your original lineup right here if you want me to read it off.
Yeah, go ahead.
Humble Pie, the original lineup featured lead singer and guitarist Steve Marriott from Small Faces,
Mm-hmm.
singer and guitarist Peter Frampton from The Herd,
There you go.
former Spooky Tooth bassist Greg Ridley, and a 17-year-old drummer Jerry Shirley from the Apostolic Intervention.
Right. So the one guy that you never heard of from the band you never heard of, and these other people. Okay.
Yeah.
So there it is. The 17-year-old drummer. I like that. But Small Faces, again, see, now that's the weird thing about 70s music, too, is that there are guys that are in and out of these bands, and, you know, like there's more than one Yardbirds, is what I'm saying. And they come in and out of these bands, and they're part of these bands, but then they go on to do something else, sometimes as a solo artist, or, you know, in the case of Lifted Riffs over there, Jimmy Page, you know, part of the Yardbirds, right?
Yep.
And
he was the bass player for the Yardbirds.
Weird, right?
Yep.
And then goes on to become these.
He was a skiffle player before that.
Describe what a skiffle is.
Skiffle is like a English countryside folk country kind of music.
Yeah. And isn't that one of those stand-up things?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. See, because I'm barely familiar with it. So, but it's one of those weird instruments that you would think to see in a country band. You know, like when some of these guys do these weird little...
No. Skiffle was the type of music, but he played a acoustic guitar.
Yeah, but what I was going to say is when you see those stand-up, those weird boxes, when you see those guys do those runs that sounds like it's on a guitar, but it's on like a box, a stand-up box.
Yeah.
Yeah, you see that? I think that they use those in that music heavily, like even more than country music, right?
Oh, you're talking about the pedal steel.
Yeah.
Oh, that is the most atrocious sound that should not be called music. I could skin a cat alive and it would probably sound the same. I don't want to skin a cat alive. I'm not promoting that in any way. I'm just saying it would probably make about the same sound as a pedal steel guitar. Oh, it's atrocious to me.
Who would be the best known skiffle group?
Jimmy Page is the only person I've ever heard referenced to skiffle.
Okay. No, I was just that was a serious open wonder. I didn't know the answer at all. So, because I never.
Yeah. So my pick from Peter Frampton is "Do You Feel Like I Do." I mean, I like the dirty music. That's what I like about rock, is it's dirty.
Yeah. Well, and that's the other thing. Look, okay. So back to what is rock and roll anyway, right?
Yeah, it's dirty, and I love it.
See, I think it's always got to have some kind of greasiness to it. That's another qualification for rock and roll. There's got to be something that's over the line for the time.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, and that's the weird thing again, is that still, though, you could say it's difficult to differentiate it from other music. How do you differentiate? You know, and when you really press somebody, a lot of these musicians who create it, a lot of them went to the default answer of like pretty much like, well, I know what it is when I hear it. And I've heard other people kind of describe it that way, you know, but really honestly, what would be the solid differentiation of rock and roll from other types of music? And if you can't make one, then how do you argue that, you know, say Dolly Parton doesn't belong in the Rock Hall of Fame? How do you argue? And again, I hate to say it, but how do you even argue that Cher doesn't belong in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? Except that, I don't know, for some reason, I don't think of her as, I think of Sonny Bono as more rock and roll than her.
Yeah, I mean, it was bubblegum rock, but still.
Yeah, but, you know, and she was married to him for a while, and she was, do you recall, well, you don't recall it because you're younger, but you do know that there was like a Sonny and Cher show. You ever see clips of that?
Yeah, I remember reruns of it.
Okay.
Yeah. It was almost just like a skit comedy show almost, with special guests and performances. And
yeah, exactly. And there was a slew of those for a while, but they had a fairly successful one for a bit.
It was like Hee Haw without the hayseed.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. And then
I love Hee Haw. I still love Hee Haw. I get a huge laugh out of those corny jokes from Hee Haw. Hee Haw belongs in the Rock Hall of Fame.
Hee Haw, why not? Wasn't there like a group of women on there that were like the Hee Haw girls or something?
Hey, Buck Owens and Roy Clark were on there too, man. I mean, they were great.
Oh yeah, well, again, I saw that Family Guy thing. Now here's Roy.
Here's Roy.
That was a night, and that's another thing. That was before your time too, so you had to be watching the reruns of that too, right?
I know it was still running when I was a kid. I was a kid in the '80s when there were two channels, and you just had to hope above hope that Reagan didn't have anything to say that day.
Jeez, yeah, that's right. No, I remember that running in the '70s and then stopping. And back in the '70s, here's another fun fact: is that country music existed on a couple of AM stations in the New York, New Jersey area, and that was it. It was like two country stations that like nobody knew where they were. They never made any real ratings, and who the hell even knew about them except the one guy you'd run into, that was like the country guy who had somehow held on to his cowboy hat, because there was this weird resurgence of like the cowboy hat and the cowboy look. What movie was that? It was that porno movie, right? The
Rhinestone Cowboy or Urban Cowboy?
No. There was a porno type thing. What was it with Marky Mark was in it too.
Boogie Nights?
Boogie Nights, that's it. And there was a character in there the black dude's running around, and now he's in a cowboy outfit because it's stylish.
Yeah.
And everybody's like laughing at him and all that. But there was like literally a segment of society during the departure from disco era that all of a sudden it was popular to do cowboy stuff. And
you just hit an interesting point for a segue, Chuck. You mentioned disco music.
Yes.
And Kool and the Gang is nominated this year.
See, now again, some people would say they have objections to that going into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but I got to be partial to Kool and the Gang.
I love them, dude.
Take a look at where they're from. Jersey City.
I mean, I didn't know they were from Jersey City. I just love Kool and the Gang. I like to watch them perform and everything. I just get a huge hoot out of Kool and the Gang, and I like disco music. I know that sounds strange coming from a rock guy that's almost a purist, and I like the metal and as heavy as you can get, I still like it. But I like disco too.
Yeah, not just because they're from Jersey, but I love them. And I used to all the time on short attention span DJ theater play at least part of what is it?
Get Down Tonight.
Jungle Boogie.
Oh, Jungle Boogie. Yeah, I love that one too.
That one is one of my favorites because that you can't tell me that is not, even though it is disco, it is also rock sounding, right?
It is, and it had that resurgence, hit the charts again even in the 90s due to Pulp Fiction using it, and it was fantastic the way Tarantino always uses music almost perfectly in his film.
Right, and it's always reminiscent of the time period. I mean, definitely, clearly, in Tarantino's movies, there's two things that are obvious. One, he watched a lot of TV and movies in the 1970s. Yes. But two, also, he's got a foot fetish. But outside of that, you got to say his music use is always intense. And by the way, if you don't believe me about the foot fetish thing, check out, he admits to it, but check out some of the ways every Tarantino movie, there's always
close-ups of Uma Thurman's feet, close-ups of Margot Robbie's feet.
Right. Yeah. And intentional stuff
Diane
going
Kruger.
on. Whoever it was that was playing the one of the Manson girls that good God, does she get up on George Clooney or does she get up on who was it?
Brad Pitt.
Brad Pitt, right. I think it's Brad Pitt who's like the stuntman in that movie about the 70s and
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
That's it. Yeah. And of course the Manson girl's trying to hook him up, and she's the whole thing with her feet going on. There's always these foot things happening. Even Sharon Tate, when she goes into the movie theater, has to take off her boots and put her feet up in front of the movie that she's watching of herself, allegedly, right?
Isn't Margot Robbie a living doll, by the way?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I mean, look, I would have never heard of Uma Thurman. Guaranteed if it wasn't for Pulp Fiction.
Same. Absolutely the same. When I think of Uma Thurman, I don't even think of the Kill Bill Volume 1, Volume 2. I think of, Mrs. Wallace Mrs.
Yes.
Mia Wallace is who I think of when I think of Uma Thurman.
Exactly. And I think she was, she just had a perfect look. She's a little strange looking in my mind, but perfect look. But even during Kill Bill, he focuses a lot on Uma Thurman's feet.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Some of it goes with
as well.
Some of it goes with the plot, when she's sitting there and she's been paralyzed for a long time because she was in a coma,
Yeah, move your big toe.
So there's that, but then again, there's a whole lot of other, clearly, fetish stroke shots of her feet during different things. You notice the intensity of even when what's that woman's name? The Asian lady who is the who is the head of the underworld and then goes
Lucy Liu.
Lucy Liu, yeah, that's it, Lucy Liu, right? When she does her whole thing, what's the big build up is her taking off her clogs, right, in the snow, getting ready to face her with the sword in the as the snow comes down, which is a great scene all the way around.
He did the same thing with Bridget Fonda in Jackie Brown.
Yes, but see, that's my point. Every one of Tarantino's movies go this way.
Yeah, and she had dirty feet. I remember that scene. Their feet were dirty, man.
Yeah, well, they usually are. I mean, even when Mia Wallace first is introduced in Pulp Fiction, right? She walks out, you're looking at her feet.
Yep.
Instead of her, she talks on the intercom system inside the house. Yeah. When she's doing the whole thing, you're getting warmer, disco. When he finds,
there we're back to Kool and the Gang.
Yeah. And Kool and the Gang. See, that's the way it goes. Anyway, so it's very clear that he watched a lot of, kung fu movies, TV in the 70s, blaxploitation stuff. He definitely got into that and certainly wasn't all about just keeping his culture white, Tarantino.
And speaking of white culture, we can now mention Foreigner and my favorite Foreigner song.
Yes, let's go into that because here we go again, and something that you would think has nothing to do with black culture at all. Foreigner, because I remember a time when there were still guys trying to emulate Foreigner.
You had Journey and, all these bands I see as similar, like Journey, Foreigner, Styx.
Right.
Boston,
A lot of these,
I see all those as similar genre in rock because, like you said, rock is a very splintered genre anyway.
Right, but late 70s, early 80s, Foreigner inspired a whole bunch of guys who are basically the Foreigner genre of rock, like you just listed them perfectly. And that's where that came from. Everybody always goes, how did guys like Journey or whatever, what was it, Kansas? Good God, all that, right?
Yep.
So all that stuff, these guys weren't necessarily pretty, but their sound was solid. I think the last dying, the death throes of it, the death knell of it might have been, ready for this one, this will sound weird to you probably, but Huey Lewis and the News was that. Oh, yeah. And classic rock, like 50s sounding rock, if you threw those two in a blender, the 50s sounding rock and Foreigner, genre in a blender, you got Huey Lewis and the News.
And I kind of liked some of Huey Lewis and the News stuff. Oddly enough, I don't ever sit down and just intentionally play Huey Lewis and the News, but
no, but if it comes on, if it comes on, really, the Heart of Rock and Roll is not a bad song.
And neither was I Want a New Drug, man. That was a cool song.
Right. And that was the thing that was a breakout for him. And, here we go again. But see, that's that whole genre of you don't even got to be pretty. In fact, I always laughed my ass off at the fact that that one Die Hard movie, one of the terrorists looks just like he should be. And, he's discount Huey from Huey Lewis and the News, right?
Yeah.
And that's hilarious. They even see Family Guy brings that up too. Right. I got a bear and a guy who looks like he's from Huey Lewis and the News. And he does.
So what you're saying about Foreigner actually leads right into what my favorite Foreigner song is. To this day, if that comes on the radio, I'm turning it up and it's Dirty White Boy.
Dirty White Boy. That makes the most sense of anything you've said about why it is you like the songs you do. So maybe you can tell me that's like one of your anthems at one point, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Man, can I curse for the sake of the title of a song?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Okay, there's this song out right. It's not very old, and I'm trying to remember the name of the band, but it's escaping me. But the name of the song is "Don't Fuck with Joe."
There it is.
and I love it.
See, and my mind was just flipping through this private conversation you and I had one day where you were recounting fights that you had.
Yeah, oh Lord. Every one of those hurt, man. I mean, you win a fight, you're still hurting the next day.
I wish I had recorded that private conversation between you and me and released it as a secret podcast, because Joe told stories for quite a while about his fights and things he had been through with his friends and why it happened. And people that were his friends and then weren't his friends, and guys who wanted to pick a fight with him, and the amount of damage done. And
dirty white boy.
This is how you have to surrender to the dirty white boy. Thought process has got to be. Of course, dirty white boy would be his thing, because that's like the theme music for these stories. I almost wish I could animate what Joe was talking about during this. How long were we talking that day? A couple hours, right?
Yeah, man. Yeah, I went on for a while, and you just kind of wound me up and let me go too.
Yeah, no, I know this is hard for people to believe who listen to the show, but I actually sat back and was like listening for at least an hour.
Yeah, I really got on a roll that day. I remember being wound up recalling those things, because you always get that adrenaline rush in a fight, and when you're recalling it, yeah, you get a miniature version of that.
Well, this is why people always go to the remember when nostalgia story when they tell it, is so that they can relive some of that emotion. They can put that picture vividly back in their heads. I mean, it is almost like a form of magic. And let's go back to the discussion of the rock and roll stuff and why it's significant. See, Foreigner, but again, that's one of those people that you would have thought, well, they already inducted Foreigner by now.
Yeah, I mean, I thought surely, they were like the pinnacle of what I consider arena rock.
And they would have to be a main staple of music at least 40 years ago. You know what I mean? Like Foreigner, yeah. I know every band has reunions, and the Stones are probably still touring, but not everybody, when they have the height of their career and then a decade or two goes by, I think they're eligible to go in, right? And you'd think Foreigner was definitely around long enough and had its peak long enough ago that they should have been in there. Much like I'm arguing Ozzy Osbourne, the peak of his career, his solo career, would have been from, say, 82 to 92. That's the absolute peak of his solo career, decade.
Absolutely.
And then, yes, he did have a career after that. He kept releasing records, and then he did the Sabbath reunion for the next, 15 years, because they reunited originally in 99, and then continued to be reunited at least all the way to 2013. Seeming to tour off and on, and then they released a brand new studio album, called 13. Anyways, but that was Sabbath, and okay, that's the 20 years of that career now in two different spots, because from 69 to 79, there's one part of it. Sabbath got in, deservedly. They grew a genre from themselves, but Foreigner also grew a genre from itself, in my mind.
Yeah, they really did. Who would argue that Boston is the same formula as Foreigner, that Journey is the exact same formula,
right?
Or Kansas, or even Styx to it. It Styx went that weird way with their rock operas and stuff. But
yeah,
other than that, they fit that genre too.
Right. So here we go. A band that really, is the progenitor of an entire genre. Again, you would have thought would have been in the hall, but not yet. Now they're going in.
I think Lou Gramm just passed too, didn't he?
Yeah, well, you know what? Don't get me on who just recently died and who didn't, because is there an in memoriam that's going to go on this year? And I didn't go all the way down, and I couldn't find the list of the odd ones. The ones where like you really actually got to go look it up to figure out who the hell they are on the list. I'm figuring Pete might bring this up on Friday, and I'm hoping he does. But if he doesn't, whatever, we covered it today a bit. What else? Who else is on that list, though? Again, I mentioned Mary J. Blige.
A Tribe Called Quest, but I'm not familiar. I know I've heard of A Tribe Called Quest, but I'm not sure that I've ever heard any of their music.
Well, and there's a weird thing, because you would have thought Foreigner would have definitely been in before A Tribe Called Quest anyway.
Oh, yes. I mean, a decade ago.
You know, and A Tribe Called Quest was influential in the hip hop community, in R&B, yes, but they were one of those. I don't think they had that many albums. I'd have to, you know what? Maybe I should look that up before I say it, because they seem to me to be almost like, not the Beastie Boys, but you know what I'm saying? They had a couple of albums maybe, but I don't remember them having a lot of record releases even.
Love the Beasties, by the way. I always appreciate any mention of the Beasties. And while you're looking up A Tribe Called Quest, I'm going to assure your audience that if you have given stats on Ozzy Osbourne, you can bet those are accurate.
Well, there you go. Ozzy is, look, and I know his solo career, and I know exactly where he's been, and I know what the controversy is. But interesting how over time the controversial becomes the mundane. You know, I mean, Crazy Train is a car commercial now. I mean, and has been for a decade already. And meanwhile, that was definitely the devil's music, because he was the devil himself at one point, the Prince of Darkness.
Oh, yeah, the Prince of Darkness.
Right. So let's see. If I go to A Tribe Called Quest, and they must have an official website, right? Or should I just go to their Wikipedia? Let's see. Try ATCQ. They have that. Let's see. Check the Rhyme, official HD video. Okay. See, again, I remember this, but
I think I missed it.
Yeah, I remember this, but I don't remember them having the huge impact, except later on they would become one of those groups that was mentioned as a huge influence. Good.
I'm not deeply versed into any music with rap, really. I mean, I was always fond of Dre and Snoop and Pac back in the 90s, that type of hip-hop. After that, though, I think I just went cold and went all the way metal and missed a whole lot of hip-hop. I still enjoy listening to Outkast if I hear them,
The group is regarded as a pioneer of alternative hip hop and merging jazz with hip hop. Okay, influencing numerous hip hop and R&B musicians. Now that's the first paragraph of the Wikipedia tells you that. Okay, so it's not. They were formed in Queens, New York, in 1985. See what I'm saying? A Tribe Called Quest is formed in 1985. Right?
Yeah, and Foreigner was on top of the charts in 1985 with I've Been Waiting for a Girl Like You.
Right.
Which I think they said that was the song that just ruined them as a band, because then everybody wanted ballads after that. Or was that I Want to Know What Love Is?
But see, either way, they are responsible for that power ballad, I don't know, the power ballad thing. That, remember, the hard rock bands even went to that after, the whole oversaturation of corporate hairspray, metal, hairspray rock.
Every one of those hair bands had a power ballad.
They all had a power ballad. And why? Because the power ballad was marketable. How do we know that? Because Foreigner.
Yeah. Oh, Foreigner sold probably billions of copies of those two soft songs that I just mentioned. And then you kind of forget, when a song like that gets so big, that they're responsible for songs like Dirty White Boy. It's kind of like the weird thing that Aerosmith's only number one song was that abortion from the movie Armageddon.
Yeah. See, but Aerosmith, again, is one of those staple bands, right, that goes along with a genre, although I've never known somebody. I mean, a lot of people say they like Aerosmith, but they're kind of like the Scorpions of their day. What do I mean by that? Well, everybody who liked metal or hard rock listened to the Scorpions when the Scorpions were popular and big, and they had some great songs, but they were sort of a one-trick pony.
The Zoo is their standout to me. That main riff in the Zoo, and I don't like the Scorpions. I don't like when I can hear a European accent.
Oh yeah, and you definitely can't get away with that with Klaus Meine on the vocals.
No, Klaus is thick, and it's like trying to listen to that hair band, Europe they called themselves.
Right. But the
I couldn't do it. The accent just killed me.
But the weird thing is, think back to this. Do you remember anybody who was specifically a Scorpions fan?
No.
No. There never was like just a guy who's like, I just love the Scorpions. Like the Scorpions is my band. You had them all along with everything else. Like, if you had a bunch of T-shirts, you might have had a Scorpions shirt. You might have seen the Scorpions in concert. Whatever. But you didn't, it wasn't like your number one thing.
No.
Never was. And that's another thing about this. Okay. So going back to a Tribe Called Quest just really fast, apparently their breakout album, even though they were formed in 85, their breakout album wasn't until 1990. Again, this is, 15 years after Foreigner is massive as a group. Yeah. So weird that they're being inducted at the same time.
That is very strange. I don't understand their reckoning or who the board is that decides these things, but
well, and in between a Tribe Called Quest, in between a Tribe Called Quest breakout, to give you an idea, in between a Tribe Called Quest breakout album and Foreigner being an establishment already established huge supergroup, you could fit that whole peak, the plateau that was Ozzy Osbourne's career in between those two times.
Yeah.
Okay. That whole decade, 82 to 92, pretty much fits right there, doesn't it? So isn't that funny?
So we're saying just based on time alone, a Tribe Called Quest is questionable.
Yeah, it seems that way.
So we're going to dub them now a Tribe Called Questionable.
That's fine by me. But, okay, so who else do we have in the class of 2024 that we should comment on here? Because
we haven't said much about Mary J., and Mary J. can do whatever she wants.
Yeah, exactly.
So, that's just the way I feel about that. If she's in the Rock Hall of Fame, even if her music wasn't rock, I don't care. She's still Mary J. Blige.
Right, and she doesn't have to die to get in there. No, none of that. Okay, so it's all good. Mary J. Blige is fine. I know that, people argue against the genre or whatever. And like you said, Kool and the Gang, they might argue against, but I can't. Nope. So, good luck to you.
Have they ever put the Brothers Gibb in?
I think on some level, let me see. And that's the weird thing about this, too, this Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Like, forget about the one fan vote, because who is the fan choice this year? Do you know anything about that?
I have not seen who the fan vote is.
Yeah, and I know it has to have been done already. Let's see.
I think the last time we did this show, Chuck, is when Soundgarden was inducted, right?
I believe so. That sounds right, because that was one of the things that you were excited about. Like, just as I'm happy about Ozzy going in, you were happy about that, I think.
Oh, yes, because Chris Cornell is, my hero as far as rock vocalists go.
Right. Okay. In 1994, one of them was inducted, let's see, Bee Gees in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 97, it says, I guess.
Wow. So, yeah, okay, good. And they got their up-and-comings, and they really took a shellacking from the public with the backlash against disco.
Well,
and then you know what they did? They went underground and they wrote some huge hits for other artists.
And previous to that, they had a whole other. See, that's the weird thing, is they had three careers pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, they were a knockoff Beatles.
Basically a knockoff Beatles. Good way to put it.
They tried to escape that stigma. And that's when he just started using his falsetto, because he didn't always do that. Their older stuff, like To Love Somebody, he didn't do that falsetto thing yet.
Right. We don't have that, extremely crazy. But that's probably where a ton of money was made, because all of a sudden they were big.
Yep.
And then you have the John Travolta, a Saturday Night Fever and all that.
The name of that song originally was supposed to just be Saturday Night, but once they heard the song Night Fever that the Bee Gees had, they were like, okay, we're going to put that in, and we're going to call it Saturday Night Fever.
There you go. There you go.
They were a cultural explosion, and then it just turned on them so viciously. Well, I never really understood why.
Well, because look, then this death to disco thing started to happen, and a lot of people that had like the local rock clubs, because I remember when Twisted Sister was a local band, they really railed against all these clubs that were like, for the past 10 years or whatever, they have not allowed rock and roll in this place, and they just had disco dance, and the disco balls were still hanging. Matter of fact, I remember telling you a story about playing at the Fast Lane in Asbury Park, and the guys from Nuclear Assault started screaming that they wanted the disco ball to come down, which was funny because that night I sold more tickets than Nuclear Assault did, my band did.
Oh, that's so awesome.
Bad. Well, no, it's not awesome. To me, it's sad because Nuclear Assault was based in Jersey at that point, and they just were not doing well. They were getting a very small payment to show up, and just nobody wanted to hear from Nuclear Assault for a minute there. And I think it's because they changed singers or some nonsense, or they let the wrong guy play guitar. I forget. But
man, I'll tell you, you will mess up your core fan base by switching out members. I mean, every time Motley Crue did it, it was disastrous for them.
Yeah, always a bad idea to go away from the original four.
Yeah, Motley Crue is like the one though that just couldn't do it. It had to be those four, or it's not going to work. I mean, I don't even think John Five's really. I haven't paid any attention. You know why? Because the mix not there.
Yeah. Well, what was it? John Corabi or whatever they brought in as a vocalist, and he wasn't bad. And I mean,
no, that was a pretty good album, but it wasn't Motley Crue.
Hey, speaking of classic hard rock, acts, Judas Priest, I think, is going to tour this year.
Original lineup?
Yeah, with Rob Halford.
Oh, that is awesome.
But he's bald and he's got the big giant beard now, but bald.
Yeah, I've seen him. Yeah, he looks like a big biker, dude.
Yeah, it looks weird.
Yeah. But tip of the hat to the other singer whose name escapes me, but that song that he did with them, Hell Is Home, I love that tune.
Well, and he wasn't a bad look. Mechanically, great vocalist, but did anybody want to see Judas Priest without Rob Halford?
No, just like nobody wanted to see Motley Crue without Vince Neil, nobody wanted to see him without Tommy Lee, and I'm pretty sure if the consensus view matches my own, nobody wants to see him with John Five either.
Yeah, right. I can't see that working out. And John Five, let's remember where he came from, right? Because he's a weird story in and of himself. Do you remember where he came from?
Did he come from Rob?
I thought he was a Marilyn Manson guy.
Yeah, Manson. Okay, yeah, Manson. I was thinking Rob. I knew it was one of those shock rock guys.
Yeah, and what happened there is that Manson had this whole thing, like he had Squiggy Ramirez or whatever. Like he had all these people that were a combination, like he was some sex icon combined with a violence icon name. Yeah. Much like, the whole band did it until they brought in this one guy, and they decided they were going to break that habit, and he became Johnny Five.
Yeah.
And I don't even remember what the reasoning was for it, because Manson used to give these very cryptic sort of, answers to questions. If you interviewed him, he'd just say weird stuff and walk away,
Brian Warner. Yeah, Mr. Brian Warner got Me Too'd too, didn't he?
Yeah, that's what I hear. And, I mean, not a surprise there, because there was a lot of weird stuff going on. I remember.
Hey, man, look now, I'm all for, victims' rights and everything, but if you're hanging with Marilyn Manson, you've already taken a chance, okay?
See, that's the thing. I knew a girl. This is weird. I knew a girl in the 90s who was like totally with whoever that was, Squiggy Ramirez or whatever. Twiggy Ramirez, that's it. The really skinny guy who always wore a pink dress. That one.
Yeah, I remember that pink dress from the Sweet Dreams video the most.
Yeah, and I'm not going to mention her name, but she's the one who got me backstage at the Ozfest the one year, because she was sleeping with guys in different bands, and she had been sleeping with a drummer of mine, and I was like, oh, okay, well, I don't care what you do. But she was just like, yeah, I can hook you up. Okay, come on along. And I bought my ticket and waited for her, and she got me in like toward the end of when people could go backstage. But
that's cool.
Nonetheless, it was okay. I was happy, and I actually got to. That's where I tell you I met Marilyn Manson. Is from that particular show, and that was like late 90s. But it was fun. It was fun, and he was definitely not being the weirdo that I had heard on Howard Stern, not being the weird guy giving cryptic answers. He was actually, pretty much like we ended up seeing him in that Fahrenheit 9/11, movie.
Oh yeah, that's when he that one of the best verbal jousts I'd ever seen in my life. It made me kind of respect him.
Bill O'Reilly
for his intelligent response to Michael Moore.
Oh, Michael Moore. Okay.
Michael Moore asked him if you could go back in time and you could say something to these kids to change it, what would you say? He said, I wouldn't say a damn thing. I would have listened to them. And that's exactly what nobody did.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly the problem. And it was perfect. And that was the kind of guy that I was confronted with when I got to meet him. But he used to also go around with this other weird act where it was like, I'm out of it, man. I'm totally, from another planet. Kind of.
Wow.
I don't know if you remember that, but I think Howard Stern told a story where he's like, he walks up to him at his birthday show, because Howard used to have these birthday shows once a year.
Yeah.
And, different celebrities would come in. They'd have a celebrity band. And Marilyn Manson got invited. He shows up real late, walks in, gives him a pair of, rubber underwear, and just walks up to Howard, hands them to him, and says, these are for you, and leaves. And I'm like, that is exactly the kind of guy he was with the press for, years,
Wow.
And his point, the big act, the mixing of sex and violence, the natural born killer's ideal, which, did he participate in that sound? No, that's Trent Reznor doing that.
Yeah, Trent Reznor. Yeah.
But Trent Reznor is also responsible for Marilyn Manson, too, because there's a whole thing where at the beginning of their career, when they started to really take off, Reznor's involved, and I think there was a bit of a feud between them for a while. Anyways, we're getting away from stuff.
You remember the Trent Reznor David Bowie collaboration?
I'm afraid of Americans.
Oh, yeah, you remember. Wow.
Isn't that one? And that's another weird one, right?
Yeah.
And
just didn't fit. Yeah. It was strange.
Yeah, but look, cross-genre stuff is interesting, too. And I think it all belongs in the rock. I say to hell with it. I mean, I guess I got to stop arguing against Cher, but here we go. Cher is in there, and I remind you again, she's going in.
I'm more opposed to Dave Matthews than Cher. I've got to be honest.
All right, so let's close this on Dave Matthews. Because what the hell is Dave? I ask again, what the hell is Dave Matthews?
It's kind of jazz, but kind of not. I mean, I don't understand jazz anyway because of the lack of form. But I don't know. I guess I just need a good dirty hook, or it's not going to catch my attention. Hey, and I thought of a good title for this show.
Go ahead.
A Tribe Called Questionable.
There you go. Because here's the thing about Dave Matthews. I can't think of a single dirty hook in Dave Matthews stuff I've heard. Can you?
Nothing. No, nothing at all. I mean, Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, they did folk stuff, and I loved it. And it did have that filth that I crave somehow.
It had a little bit of that. Now, there's an interesting place to go. Crosby, Stills, and Nash, or Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, either way. You have just guys standing there at a certain point who could just perform with a couple of guitars and guys singing. That's about as folk as you can get. And still, there was a little bit of dirt under that. There was a little bit of greasiness to it here and there. And even though, I don't know, I guess and that's the other strange thing, is at a certain point, folk music was kind of in with rock too. And some people would say that that's part of what's got to go in the blender to make rock and roll. But a whole lot of the artists we just got done mentioning have nothing to do with folk music whatsoever. But no. Dave Matthews, again, I'm still having trouble. I mean, you're calling it jazz. Why jazz? Tell me why jazz.
Because jazz is hard to define as well. And, some of the harmonica parts are sort of jazzy, kind of. No, I'm not even going to say bluesy. That'd be such an insult to the blues, because, I'm a big blues guy. I love the blues. So, but I don't want to call it blues, and it's got horns and it's kind of jazzy, and the keys, acoustic guitar. So kind of folksy too, but not either of those things somehow.
Fair enough. I'm looking up just something else to try and close this out on, because I have a thought and I want to make sure I've got my facts straight. So we get through it, because to me, mixing jazz and rock is not Dave Matthews, right? To me, it's more like a soul coughing, which was more of a noise band, right? And their big hit was Super Bon Bon, which I used to, again, play that on Short Attention Span DJ Theater. I love that song. And it's got a flow to it. It's got lots of dirt. It's got lots of grease. Okay. And it's from a noise band that's got a rhythmic bass. Now, see, there's where that rhythmic backbone comes in. That doom, 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 doom. That is your very basic, tribal almost, sort of downbeat.
Man, the bass player is the unsung hero in every rock band.
Well, obviously. But, I mean, but just going back to it, to me, if you were to say that there's like a jazz mix in here, I would say that that's more like jazz because it is, again, and I think a lot of people call them a noise band or progressive noise rock. And that's their only hit, but they've had a lot of weird experimentation out there. And I mean, there's a bunch of bands that do experiment. Dave Matthews, no experimentation though. To me, no experimentation. Is there something I'm missing, Joe?
No, I mean, every time I think of Dave Matthews, I think of that goofy, what would you say about, something about a doggy on a chain and this and that. Don't bite the mailman. Oh,
yeah.
Turn it off. You're killing me.
Is there a deeper meaning to the lyrics I'm missing here, or is he just, I don't know. It's like definitely the white high school poetry magazine version of rock lyrics. I mean, not all that original, not all that, I don't know, Dave Matthews Band. And they were super popular for a while for some reason.
Yeah,
I still can't figure out why.
I mean, it kind of felt like they were trying to ride the coattails of like Blues Traveler. But I loved Blues Traveler. I mean, I got nothing bad to say about John Popper and Blues Traveler, man. I thought they were great.
No, there's a bunch of bands there that really didn't have the staying power, although they were around a long time and making a living, like Blues Traveler, like Spin Doctors, stuff like that. And they came out. I mean, the Spin Doctors got famous with that one cover tune, but for a long time, they had a solid career. So did Blues Traveler, but they were sort of almost one-hit wonders, right? And it's weird.
Doctors did a cover tune?
Yeah, that whole "Let Me Let You Candle On" because I'm so hard to handle now. Yes, man.
No. That was the Black Crowes, my man.
Oh, that's the Black Crowes. Sorry. No, the Spin Doctors. Didn't they do a cover also?
I don't know. I only remember two of their songs. One was called "Two Princes," and the other one was called "Little Miss Can't Be Wrong."
Okay.
Oh, yeah, and Pocket Full of Kryptonite. I remember that one, too.
And what was it? She Used to Be Mine, right?
Maybe.
Yeah. Okay. You know what I did? I just mixed up the Spin Doctors and the Black Crowes.
Yep. Yeah, that's an Otis Redding tune.
That goes to show you, though, something right there, doesn't it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Is that I'm mixing those two up because, again, not super discernible, but a whole lot more dynamic and dirty than Dave Matthews, for Christ's sake.
Yeah. Man,
anyway,
if the Black Crowes aren't there, they should be.
I'm looking at I love
those guys.
The Wikipedia description is too funny because it pretty much did what you just did. Two Princes and Little Miss Can't Be Wrong are mentioned right in the first sentence. Alternative rock. Yeah, that was the thing about the Spin Doctors, is that they were considered alternative rock as well.
Yeah, that was that whole thing post-grunge. I mean...
Right. It was college alternative rock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That kind of morphed into your Third Eye Blinds and Gin Blossoms, and I absolutely hated that era of music.
Well, right, but correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't Dave Matthews in with that, though? Wasn't he popular alongside of that college alternative rock stuff, or no?
Yes, I think that if not, it was certainly just a very near precursor. It seems like that, yeah, those things were happening simultaneously, and I think that Blink 182 came out, and yeah, okay. I thought that they were watering things down.
Well, see, there's your problems all in a basket. And the last thing is, about 15 years ago, what was it? Middle-aged moms were definitely into Dave Matthews. So, I mean, he could show up and still make a living, right? I
don't think of him as a musician, though. I think every time somebody says Dave Matthews now, I just see his character in that Adam Sandler movie, Just Go With It.
But then again, just like the guy who made, what was that? The one guy who did the Margaritaville song who died not too long ago, right?
Buffett.
Yeah, I mean, like, he made a whole career out of the one song. I mean, there were cruises, everything, a whole genre built off of one song, right?
Yep.
Where it was, what do they call it, cruise rock or something?
Beach rock, maybe? I don't know. That would be the Beach Boys.
There was some genre. No, Beach was definitely the Beach Boys kind of thing, and that was, Dick Dale and that kind of stuff.
Jan and Dean.
Jan and Dean, right. But no, this was, but for a little while there was Jimmy Buffett was his own, like, Margaritaville type genre, too. And he built a whole empire out of that.
Yep.
So, you can't, the guy had excellent business sense, apparently. And there you go. There's a one-hit wonder that built a whole thing out of it. But Dave Matthews, to me, I don't know. I'd put Jimmy Buffett in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame a lot faster than Dave Matthews. I just got no use for him. It's like, Jesus Jones. Why not put that in the?
Oh man, I always forget about Jesus Jones right here, right now. Oh my gosh, it's like Faith No More got neutered.
Right. And Faith No More is funny, too, because Faith No More is one of those bands that a lot of people cite as, like, one of the greatest, and they really only know one song,
Yeah, like Green Jelly.
Green Jelly.
Little pig, let me in.
Which was initially Green Jello until they got sued. Yeah.
That's why I didn't say Jello. I didn't want to be copyrighted either.
Oh, my God. And the funny thing is that when they put out the repackaged video, because they did a video album that went along with that, and everybody knows the claymation Three Little Pigs, but they had a serial killer on there, Toucan Son of Sam,
Yeah, that was great though.
They had a superhero named Shitman on the video album.
Another band that you can't really classify. And I really don't know how to take their name, but they had a song called Pepper in the 90s that I absolutely loved. Do you remember these guys?
Oh, yeah. What the hell was the name?
The Butthole Surfers.
That's right. And they were an underground band, very successful for a long time before Pepper dropped. And then Pepper became a thing.
I love that song too, man. But I never can figure out what they mean by that name. Are they buttholes that surf, or are they surfing?
Yeah, I'm not sure either. But they were around. Seriously, they were like a punk band, and then that song came out, and I love that song, by the way.
I do too. I love it. They're all in love with dying. They were doing it in Texas.
And they were doing it in Texas. I don't mind the sun sometimes. Like,
oh, I love that. I love that song. But see, that's one of those obscure bands that's way more rock and roll and more worthy than Dave Matthews. And if you're getting beat out, if I think that a band that calls themselves the Butthole Surfers deserves to be there more than you, dude, you got no business there.
That's it. And by the way, that is our vote. The Butthole Surfers belong in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame before Dave Matthews. So Regular Joe and I discussed Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and the rock business as it may stand or may not, depending. I got this thing playing under me that I accidentally hit. But we're going to do the outro music now because I'm all done. So this was just for fun. Regular Joe joined me, and I thank you, sir.
Hey, I thank you. It was a lot of fun.
I always love doing this kind of thing. Just something out of the box, a little different for the podcast listener, but it is what it was. It was what it's going to be.
Revelation through conversation.
WallStreetWindow.com. Gold, silver, the stock market. WallStreetWindow.com. Perhaps you're invested deeply. Perhaps you're not in deep enough. Maybe you're thinking about getting started. WallStreetWindow.com. Michael Swanson, the brilliant author of The War State, understood these trends professionally for many years, and now he gives you the benefit of his knowledge. WallStreetWindow.com. Go there now. Go there now. Go there now.
The Ochelli.com radio network.
In denial. Secret Wars with Airstrikes and Tanks by Larry Hancock. Secret wars became a staple of U.S. covert operations and are still happening today. Larry Hancock's book, In Denial, rips the cover off many of them. Using new files, it exposes things about the Bay of Pigs that no one has ever written about before. It shows why it really failed and why the United States did not learn from it. It also shows why other countries today are doing secret operations with more success. This is the book that puts what some want to deny into the light. In Denial, Secret Wars with Airstrikes and Tanks. Larry Hancock. For more information, go to larry-hancock.com. Pick up your copy of In Denial at amazon.com in digital or physical form.
The War State by Michael Swanson explains the great national transformation that took place and put the Kennedy presidency in the context of the times and reveals never-before published information about the Cuban Missile Crisis. President Kennedy would not have been assassinated if he had been president 200 years ago. His assassination took place in the context of the Cold War and the rise of the national security state. Before World War II, the United States was a continental republic. In the decade that followed, it became an imperial superpower. Generals such as Curtis LeMay not only wanted to invade Cuba, but knew that there were short-range missiles on the island armed with nuclear warheads that they could not destroy because they were on mobile launchers. Their invasion could have led to a third world war, and they wanted to go to war anyway. The War State by Michael Swanson reveals why and will show you what President Kennedy was up against. For more information, thewarstate.com.
Ochelli.com.
Let 'em know. Let 'em know.
Nuclear holocaust. You know what uranium is, right? It's a thing called nuclear weapons and other things. Lots of, you know what uranium is, right? Bad things. Things are done with uranium, including some bad things. Nuclear holocaust. You know what uranium is, right? I've been briefed. Nuclear holocaust. Nuclear holocaust. You know what uranium is, right? It's a thing called nuclear weapons and other things, like lots of, you know what uranium is.